All right. I'd like to welcome everyone out to the Edge Mastermind call today. My name is Courtney Moses, and I will be facilitating the call today. At the Edge Global Convention, Rod had asked me to present on a topic called the 4 decisions, on how to help commit builders. And this is a topic I've been really passionate about. And what I've realized is that, this principle that we're going to discuss today has helped me release a lot of frustrations in my business, and it's also helped me in communicating and working with builders in recognizing where they're at in their business and how I can best support them and work with them. And so I'm really excited for the call today. So what I want to go over is, we're going to discuss the 4 decisions a builder makes. And so what happens, through our business is that we find someone and, we get all excited, think we've committed the next builder because they told us they're going to do this with us. And we start walking them through, these steps of this process of things to do and how to get started with doTERRA, right? And sometimes what happens is that maybe, communication isn't clear, or someone starts to pull back a little. Maybe they're not showing up as much as you thought they would, or maybe not responding the same way. It could be something as simple as asking them to, do their first class, or maybe it's their second or third class or anything like that. And they're not scheduling that class, right? And so then what happens, is we tend to sometimes get so emotionally invested and upset when somebody quits, when the reality is that they never even started to begin with, okay? And that happens often. Or we are frustrated they're, not deciding to go big when really we need to just help them, understand and make the decision to keep going when it's hard for them. And so it's important that we just recognize where people are at and help them make that next decision instead of trying to get them to jump, from decision 1 to decision 4. And so the 4 decisions that we're going to discuss today is the decision to start, the decision to keep it going when you know now how hard it is, the decision to let go, and the decision to go big. And I hope by the end of this that it's really clear on what I'd like you to do is to figure out where you're at in this process. And then if you have some paper, make a little chart of each of your builders and identify where they're at in this process. And I think that you'll be able to find this will help with your communication and all of you reaching towards your goals together. So my first question for the mastermind is, how do you help someone make the decision to start? So we're going to go through each of the 4 decisions. The first one is the decision to start. So the question is, how do you help someone make the decision to start?
Courtney?
Yes, go ahead, Ron.
I think, in my view, this is kind of a fundamental area of network marketing that most people overlook, and that deciding to start is when somebody commits to move forward is largely based on a number of different factors, and one of those factors is their relationship with you, and so I find that if people are solely focused on enrollments, for example, and they don't follow through with the next steps, nor do they seek to integrate that new enrollment into any sort of community or seek to form any sort of relationship with that person, that oftentimes there's always a failure to start. I've been around a number of groups where there were excellent quality people that never really got started because the second and third and fourth and integration steps were never executed against. And so if your process starts and ends at enrollment, and if you're seeking to try to automate and avoid contact with people, then it's going to be very difficult to get builders or people interested even to make that first commitment to agree to start. And so I think relationships are are that first part of where you actually allow enough time for you to develop rapport and get to know someone enough that they like being around you. Now, the next part is builders follow leaders. And I was having a conversation this morning about this very thing, where we realized that a lot of times people have difficulty getting people to move towards them or commit to start because they aren't giving them anything to follow. And so if it's only a partial commitment on your part, for example, if you're kind of casually doing things and you're kind of a wait and see kind of person, then there's nothing to follow. Builders don't know where to go. They don't know who's leading. They don't know where the train is headed. And so you're less likely to get somebody to commit to start. So there's two factors there. One is making the decision yourself to be a leader and actually be moving towards something, being clear in your own in your own mission. For example, I remember you, Courtney, a while back would really emphasize your cause on helping adoption. And I remember at that time there was a lot of people in your classes that wanted to follow that. And so builders were rising up in that step because they wanted to help in that quest. So you were giving something to follow in that leadership part. So the two factors are do you have enough space and time to actually cultivate the relationship, and two, are you clear enough in what you're achieving and that people understand the direction that your train is going, so that they can make a decision to get on board.
Yeah, and I think you bring up some fantastic points, Rod, because, I know for me, I've seen the difference when I've been focused just on purely enrollment, right? And it seems like I can get a lot of enrollments, but then I don't get a lot of builders out of that, right?
Right.
But if I'm focused on, truly seeking out like that builder, and building that relationship with them, well, I guess I should phrase this different. When I'm at the point where I'm trying to seek out and identify a builder, I notice that I do take more time in building my relationship with them. And it's not just with them, but it's with anyone that I come in contact with, right? So, for example, I was just in Texas, and I was out to dinner. I was just at a restaurant with some teammates, and I'm at the point now where I have no idea when any connection I make is going to turn into a best friend or a builder, right? So I value every connection I have in life, right? No matter if it's a waitress or someone helping me at a car dealership or, someone I go to church with or a friend down the street, whatever that is, right? I value all of those connections I have with people. And so I just took some time to get to know, this waitress and was asking her questions and really being interested in her. And at the end of an hour-long, time at the restaurant here, this waitress is now a new builder on my team, right? But if I didn't value that connection and that relationship, so when you talk about relationships, it could be someone you've known for years, or it could be someone that you're just now meeting. But in that time frame, did they feel like this person cared about me and I want to be a part of what they're doing? You know what I mean? And so I think sometimes we get confused thinking, oh, I have to know these people for years and I have to cultivate this relationship forever and ever and ever before someone wants to build with me. And that's really not the case, right? That's how you made them feel with those interactions you did have with them. I also like that you brought up, the second point on, I totally just lost my train of thought here. What was the second point?
Giving people something to follow.
Giving them something to follow, yeah. So I have a question for you on that. When we talk about this, sometimes that can scare people away, right? Because they might be thinking, oh, well, I don't know what I'm following, so how can I get someone to want to follow me if I don't know my big grand why yet? So what would you say in a situation like that then? So how are ways that you can show up to give them something to follow if you're just elite and you're just getting started and maybe you don't have that clear vision yet of what doTERRA is going to be at the end for you?
Well, I think that's an excellent point. And one is people people follow people that are headed somewhere, and so that isn't meant to scare anybody off. Nor does having something to follow mean anything more than being clear about your commitment to the company. And so, for example, I think we do a little bit of a disservice when we emphasize the why so dramatically, because the assumption is that it's some sort of grandiose cause, when the reality is it's just being tired of where you are and being determined enough to change things. And now when you start out, changing things is your own life. And then when your own life is under control, changing things expands beyond that. So when I first started in doTERRA, I wanted to change my economic position. I wanted to be able to eat. And then when I could eat, then I could look forward to, some more future things. Like I wanted to make sure I could pay for college for my kids. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any, that money wasn't an issue in the day-to-day life. Well, then when I got to that level, then I started looking at my team, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to make sure that my team has something to, to work towards and to gain that self-reliance themselves. And then when a lot of my leaders were solidified, then I could look forward and I could start realizing how could we use the power that's being created, and my why kind of evolved over time. I would predict that even my why isn't fully evolved yet into what it's going to be. And so really the why is nothing more than your reason to be committed. And it doesn't have to be anything more than being tired of your current circumstance, enough that you're willing to fight. And if you're someone that's so determined to change your world, then that's pretty darn exciting. And a lot of people can catch that vision. It doesn't have to be wrapped around anything that's esoteric. It just is wrapped around certainty in your quest.
Right. I appreciate you elaborating on that. Because I think it's also in just how you show up in that class, right? Are you confident in what you're doing? And maybe, like you said, it's just that commitment in the company and your posture, right? That would inspire someone to want to follow. So I love that you brought that up.
And most people find that as soon as they decide, they'll notice things start to shift and change. And so a lot of times it's just being certain. It's just making that decision yourself.
Right. It's not I'm gonna give it 3 months and then figure out if I'm gonna keep going or just by 10 if you decide. Right.
You're trying to liberate somebody and I'm giving it a try. I mean, who's gonna buy into that?
I'm gonna try this out. All right, David Ellis, you're next.
I'm gonna answer my prayers and change my world. No, it's we're going to the top, and I'm going to figure this out because the others have. And so it's not a problem with the model working. And so I'm just going to figure it out, and we're going to go. Well, then if somebody's praying for a change of life, and you're that person that's headed there, well, then you're an easy choice to follow.
Right. I love that. Thank you, Rod. All right, David Ellis.
I raised my hand a little bit ago. But I would just add a little bit to what Rod just said, because the reality is when somebody wants to change, a lot of people get into or they decide they want to build because they need a change. They're attracted to the oils, obviously. They're attracted to that. And maybe it's a change in health, maybe it's a change in finances, but they want a change. If they don't want to change, then they just keep doing the status quo. And there are a lot of people that do that, right? You look around and say, you really need what we offer. They don't recognize it. And so until somebody else recognizes it, then oftentimes they're not motivated enough to make that change, because the reality is it is change. It's moving forward and it's progression. And so you talked earlier about, that you can inspire somebody to want to build in a 15-minute conversation, because you've built enough of a rapport or a relationship that they see you as a catalyst for their own change. That's really what it comes down to. They see, wow. Right. And that's what Rod's talking about. Is they look at you and say, this is somebody that if I hook my ship to them or I hook my wagon to them, I know where they're headed in a direction that I want to go. And the reality is if they want that change in themselves, right? They want that change for their life. The number one catalyst for that change is themselves. And so when I love Seth's quote, and I'm going to butcher it because I need to get him to write it down one of these times, but the gist of it is so amazing. And he talks about, it's Roger Anthony's quote. And he's said it so many times, I should have it by now. But it's, it's great to do it, and it's great to be it. But by far is when you
do it.
so, yeah. So go ahead and say it, because then you'll get it right. I know it's one thing to do it. It's another thing to
say it.
Say it.
You want me to say it?
And it's
okay.
Yeah. Would you say it?
Now write it down. Get a pen out. So, it's one thing to teach a certain thing. It's another to live it. But the greatest by far is to so thoroughly be it that your very presence does the teaching.
And that's how you recruit builders. Is that your very being attracts people to you because they want to be what they feel in your presence. And when they feel in your presence what Rod described as somebody that has direction, somebody that knows where they're going, someone that's going to get there, whether they're an elite or a blue diamond going for presidential. I've seen some elites that they know they're going to be premier. And they so become that just being in their presence, you're like, well, I'm not even elite. I want to be elite. Right? And so it's that direction of where you're going and that you want so bad to make a change that you may not even have the evidence yet. Right? You don't have the evidence to say, listen, if you hook on with my ship or you hook onto my wagon, I'm going to executive. I'm going to be an executive. And they so believe that them as a manager can buy into that. So you don't have to be a blue diamond going presidential to inspire someone to make a change in their life.
Right.
You just have to want it and be it so much that the reason that gal signed up with you was nothing to do with what you said at that restaurant. It was the fact that she felt something in your presence by your very being that she was like, when you made that invitation, would you like to learn more about this? She's like, well, if that's what you're doing, that's what I want to do. And that's what sometimes we really forget is we think we have to know everything. Yeah. We think we have to know all this stuff. We think we have to have all these answers. Really, you just have to know one more thing than the person you're talking to. And be so evident and so committed to it and so confident in it that they want it because they see it and feel it in you.
Yep. I love it. Thank you, David. All right. Hey, Rod, are you by chance in front of your computer? Because mine keeps freezing up and I can't see the dashboard. Can you run that for me?
Yeah, I have it open.
Okay. I'm going to stop trying to mess with that. Thank you. All right. So any other comments on helping someone make the first decision of starting? Any other comments before we move on to the next? I think we've covered that so well. I think those are fundamental things. All right. So the next decision then is to keep going now that you realize how hard it is, right? Because so what happens when we start is we're just filled with all this excitement and we have no idea what we're getting into. And we're just thinking this is going to be fun. I'm going to go conquer and do these things. Right? I'm going to change lives. We're so excited, right? And then you get going and you realize, holy crap, this is actually a little harder than I thought it was going to be, right? Like there's a lot more personal development than I thought there was going to be. There's a lot more sacrifice. There's a lot more time, a lot more stretching my comfort zone. Like this is just harder than I thought it was going to be. And now we realize that, right? And then you're faced with that next decision of to keep going. So how do you help someone make that decision in that time to keep going now that they know how hard it is?
Mary Sisti has her hand up.
All right, go ahead, Mary.
Well, I think I was just going to tag on the coattails onto what David said, but I can also answer a part of this as well. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I also thought about how I was able to become influential on my team, and I feel like I was able to open up that sense of vulnerability that people crave so much, because just people crave it. We live in a world where we think we have to be someone we're not, which is perfect. And perfection is not equivalent to humanity at all. And just like how David said, once the thought of knowing everything and having to be something and stand up there with a prop posture when we feel, so vulnerable inside and fearful. I mean, people can feel that vibration. They can. And if we throw that perfection out the window and we're able to open up to others and show them that, hey, you don't have to be perfect. Like, for instance, you, Courtney, I value and respect you as a leader because you've gone through so much stuff with your family, adopting your beautiful kids, and persevering through all of the hardships that those, the ups and down roller coasters of of doTERRA, and that resonated with me, and so I feel like, wow, she can do that too, and she reached diamond levels, and she's by herself. And I'm like, well, I'm by myself. I don't have a partner in crime to do this with me as well. So I thought, well, I can walk through her steps as well, and I can, you always pushed personal development, so I thought, well, I am fearful, and I do have a lot of these things. I'm in this spot, but I want to get to this spot. I want to be where she's at, so I'm going to follow the footsteps. So when you really stress that personal development, I'm like, I got to read some more books. I say I don't have time, but no, I have to dedicate my time if I want to be in that spot where she's at. No, I have to dedicate time for myself. So, kudos to you, but also to, all the people who have reached diamond ranks in doTERRA and above, and those people who are, struggling that whole silver to diamond march, or silver to gold march I know is really difficult. So I don't know, I guess my advice is that you just have to open up to others, open up to yourself, be vulnerable, because people are craving it, and they need a change. They need to experience the fact that, hey, I don't have to be perfect, and I can do this too. So then also, to answer your next question, I feel like when you're kind of walking through the journey and you've seen it before and you know how hard it is, but then when you look up to, like I said, looking up to the people who have been there before and really, taking to heart like what their journey was, is never going to be the same, but there are things that just run very parallel in the belief systems and the dimensions and above. So I recommend just kind of looking at what they're doing and how they're being successful, and just mirroring that and doing the action steps that allowed them to become into the leadership ranks and above. So I guess that's what my advice would be for people who are struggling if it's hard, and also just knowing that, where I've been and what I've seen and experienced, and then just being, again, open and vulnerable to your team and letting them know it's not going to be, an easy path. It really isn't. It's really a choice to take the hard road, I feel, because you're going to be pushing through some real negative belief patterns that you've had in the past. And if you're able to look at it in the face and show that, hey, guys, like, I know that this is really hard, but you're going to come out of this a better person, like a better mother, a better teacher, advocate for others, a better listener, and a better lover towards humanity. I feel like I have become less jaded even just by being with other people and seeing the struggles that they're going through, and also with the emotional side of life, just how people are starting to open up and really look at this like, okay, here I'm having depression. That's a huge emotion that people just like to suppress because they feel like they're weird or they're alone, and that I call it a disease. It's a horrible, horrible emotional disease that happens in the brain and people just don't know. They feel alone. And so when you say, hey, it's okay to feel this way, we're human, we're not supposed to be happy all the time, and we just need to, pull ourselves together and have that sense of community for your team, being there for them, listening to them, loving them where they're at. And usually that's what has made me successful. It's just coming from personal experience. So
thank you. I appreciate that. I know, when I think about that decision, when, I had to make that decision, and you realize everything you're going through, and it's like, oh, now I get how many classes I have to teach, and these people I have to lead and work with all these different relationships and, personalities and everything like that. Like, I remember several conversations, with my upline staff, just like, tell me it gets better. Like, tell me there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that all this is worth it. Like, my dreams really can come true, and so I think it's just really important, like that you brought up, just to talk to others that have been there, you know what I mean? And what did they do to help get through some of those times? So I like that you bring that up. Any other comments on this and how you help someone make that second decision?
Alonto Manganog has his hand up.
All right, Alonto.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So the decision to keep going when it's hard, is that the topic?
Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to that, like, I like to take the approach of taking baby steps and to build their confidence in themselves being able to do it. And one of the most important things that I ask is for past experiences that they've had. And usually, like, say, like before doTERRA, Courtney, what did you do?
Well, right before doTERRA, I was a mom and doing foster care, and I was sewing at home for a company, making about $300 to $500 a month.
Okay, and how long did you do that for?
Let's see. I was doing that for about 6 months.
Okay. And when doTERRA came into your life, what type of proficiency did you have, even with just the 6 months that you had in experience?
What type of proficiency?
Yeah, if you could say like intermediate or a beginner to like master, like where would you put yourself?
As far as those skills and where I was at in that like home sewing or whatever, like sewing?
Yeah.
I was a master. I had done it. I did it for 7 years prior. I just took like a couple year break. So I mean, I was very good at what I did. It just didn't pay well.
Okay, so it took you 7 years to go from like totally knowing nothing with it to mastery, right?
Yeah. Yep. You could say that.
So that's why I like to kind of paint a picture for people that at the very beginning, with anything that you go into that's brand new, it's going to be a struggle. Like, it's going to hurt. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I just went back into, like, really working out again. And I just did leg day yesterday. And that's, like, one of the most, like, feared exercise body part when it comes to anyone working out, because it affects everything that you're doing, from like walking to moving, right. Anything period. So I'm like sore as heck, but like with the help of the oils, that's really alleviating a lot of that temporary pain. But really an understanding that if I keep doing this, like anything that I've done in the past, I'm going to get better, and I'm going to develop that mastery that will lend to now having like a healthy lifestyle. And it's the same thing with building this business, because at the very beginning, like our experience was the same thing. We knew nothing when it comes to
network marketing. We knew nothing when it came to the oils. But through the process of teaching the class, experiencing like everything that we had a issue, we had an ailment, we tried an oil for it, and it just got better and better and better. And then after 3 years, we got to where we're at. So it didn't happen in a day. It was a process of little steps that we took that would contribute towards the end goal.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. So helping them just take those little baby steps and working through that. Okay. Allie Baker, you're next.
Hey. So I had this thought come to me yesterday when I've been working through a couple of things mentally and emotionally lately. And so when you talked about how do you keep going or how do you inspire others to keep going even when it's hard, this is the thought that came to me for me personally, and I just felt like I needed to share it. So what I've been thinking is being in debt is hard, or going to a job every day that you hate is hard, or waking up every day looking at your life and thinking, things in my life suck for X, Y, and Z reasons. And then it's, doing doTERRA is hard. Being away from my family is hard. Putting yourself out there is hard. And so for me, it came down to, which hard do I want to choose? Do I want to choose the hard that's just hard because I make it hard because I focus on all the things that are crappy and terrible? Or do I want to choose the hard that's going to refine me and make me better and, vault me to a higher way of thinking, a higher way of living, a higher way of being? And so I think for me, and I don't know, I hope it doesn't come across as tough love, kind of choose your hard, but I think sometimes we have to sit down and we have to really evaluate, which hard do we really want to go with? Do we want to go with the hard that just makes us feel terrible, or do we want to go with the hard that makes us feel pain in the moment, but we know it's going to make us better overall? So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Allie. I appreciate it. And I think it's true. We are, faced with those decisions at the time. And, I love what you said. It's a matter of prioritizing that. You know what I mean? And which choice do I want to make? I appreciate that. All right. Any other comments on this before we move on to the next one? Okay. All right. So the decision number 3 is the decision to let go. So how do you help someone make the decision to let go? Now, this could be something like a limiting belief they have to let go of. It could be, it could be a relationship, toxic relationship. It could be maybe a dream. It could be a myriad of different things that they would have to decide to let go of. And the purpose of why you would have to let go of something is because you don't have enough space to be able to do doTERRA at the level you want to get the results you're wanting, right? And so whether it's mental or emotional or physical, whatever that space is, really what we're talking about here is creating that space to giving doTERRA the time and attention that it deserves to reach your goals. So, again, the question, how do you help someone make the decision to let go of whatever it is that's preventing them from moving forward?
Virginia Newman has her hand up.
All right, go ahead, Virginia.
Hi, thank you. First, you have to figure out what it is you're willing to let go. And part of my discovery of that is going on the Mastermind call and just listening to what people had to say. When I had questions, you encouraged me on how to handle different situations, because letting go of control and knowing it's going to be okay. And just the other day, listening to Katie Glasgow saying, okay, surrender. These are oils you use to surrender. And I thought, okay, let me try that, because there were some things I needed to surrender right now and to let go of and say, okay, I'll go with the plan. The Lord's plan's the best plan, not my plan. And it's enabling me to let go of some things I need to do right now, but I've had to let go of other things in the past. And when I have a team member that's doing that, I'm listening to them, So I'm mentoring them, and I'm helping them see the next step and encouraging them, whether it is to ask them questions so they lead them to want to read another book and learn more, or be more consistent in doing 631, or reorganizing their schedule so that they make their time to listen to the mastermind call, or just let them know I care. And maybe I've got to listen to them once a week for a couple of weeks before they'll say, okay, I'm ready to do the next step now. But they had to be heard out enough for them to want to do it. And I said, oh, by the way, why don't you use this oil? I read this, or I listened to Desiree say such and such about a product, and I found it helpful for me. You might find helpful for you.
Thank you, Virginia. You know, what I find is really interesting about this decision to let go is, you know, I think as leaders, like for all the platinum and, you know, diamond above on the call, you know, I think there's probably most mentoring calls that we're on and we're leading those calls that we're listening to people, trying to be very, very careful with my words I'm saying here, describe their life and all these things that come up, right, of why maybe certain action steps didn't get done or something like that, right? You get what I'm saying, right? So as a leader, it's like you have to help them see that and paint that picture for them of, hey, these are some things that are blocking you, and that can be difficult, right? Seth, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Hey. So I think, excuse me, I'm in Italy right now, and anyway, there's a bunch of people speaking Italian around me. Anyway, so.
Well, like you can understand them.
So. Yeah. So I think the decision to let go, you know, we had a mastermind call a while ago where we discussed these 4 decisions. And it was kind of a revelation that, you know what, because we realized that we made decisions to do this business. But there were points along the way where you made a deeper decision, a furthering of the decision. Like when you decide to get started and then you realize how hard this actually is, and you decide to keep going, and now we're talking about letting go. And I think that every time you're inviting someone to let go, you're asking them to let go of something that it's typically fear-based. They're afraid to let go of it, right? So no matter what it is, the motivator of holding on is fear. And so that's why it's difficult to identify exactly what someone needs to let go of, because different people are afraid of letting go of different things. And most of what I've found is that people are afraid to let go of the familiar. Even if the familiar sucks, even if their current situation is terrible, it's what they know and understand. And so when freedom or prosperity are right around the corner, they actually hold on to poverty, or they'll hold on to struggle, or they'll hold on to damaging patterns in their life.
Right.
And it's only because it's what they know, and they're so afraid of the change that they won't let go of their current situation, their current circumstance, their current excuse, their current story, that type of thing. And so a lot of times, like when I'm talking to someone, we'll invite them to let go of their current job. Like, you know what, you're making enough in doTERRA that you could probably make this work. It would be tight, but if you were to quit your job, you could probably live on what you're making in doTERRA, and it would take you from gold to diamond, right? And then they're like, oh man, and they're scared to death. They're scared of letting go of the job because then they start, becoming irrational and start thinking, well, what if everything that I've done in doTERRA falls apart, and then I'm going to be in a position that's worse than I'm now, and so I'm going to hold on to the job. And then they hold on to their current life because they're afraid of the unknown, even if the what we're inviting them to do is spectacular, right? And so, that's going to be all, major life changing. There's a story of I don't know if it's true or not, but where they had this person, they said, okay, you're in front of a firing squad, and they said, you have a choice. You can face the firing squad, or you can go through that door, and through that door is something different. Which would you choose? And most of the people would choose the firing squad because they wanted a quick death as opposed to whatever was on the outside of that door, which could have been
right
or whatever. And in reality, on the other side of the door was freedom. And most people chose the bullet because it was what they were comfortable with. And so, it's what they knew instead of the fear of the unknown. And so, so in other words, I guess the answer to the question is we need to find out what's holding someone back. What is the thing that's holding them back? And it could be any of the things that we've talked about, bad relationships, even I had someone say, well, I would do this, but I realize that I'm going to have to change. And you're like, right, you are. You're going to have to change and become better and become the very best version of yourself. And you're like, yeah, and they wouldn't let go of who they currently were. Like, even though they didn't even like who they were, but they didn't want to have their friends or their society that was not healthy say, oh, they've changed. And so, anyway, so let's think about some of the things that your question is how did you let go? Do you remember what you had to let go of? Do you remember
I let
the
go
things?
of a lot of things. I know the very first thing that I let go of was not being a foster mom. So it was that this is my way to grow my family. This was the way I was going to adopt a daughter, and I had to let go of doing that.
Right, and I remember that because you were cruising along in doTERRA, and you had this dream of helping kids, and then you brought on these foster children, and it was like. I don't know, because I didn't want you to let go of that dream. It was just, Courtney,
we put it on the
let's
shelf.
do things in order. Right, let's look at where we're at right now and realize you were still in a very precarious situation. And the thing that's interesting is that a lot of the stuff in your marriage hadn't come to light yet. And so could you imagine if you would have just said, no, I'm going to stay and foster these kids and everything's going to be fine. It would have been disastrous. But,
it would have.
But the fact that we were like, hey, Court, I love your vision. But if you let go of the need of this, like sacrifice what you really want, like this little thing you want now, even though it's a big thing, then you're going to be able to make a big difference later if you just put it in the right order. And then you let go of that, I remember when you let go of that everything changed. Like your business took off. I think another thing that I hear all the time is the need. There, like we work with a lot of moms in doTERRA, letting go of the perceptions of what the perfect mom is. And that if you're not doing your child's laundry, then you are a terrible mom. And you're like, but that's the way my mom did it. And you're like, I know, but I'm going to ask you to let go of that and realize there are things more important than who does the laundry, right? Yeah. Or in my case, I remember when I was, I was trying to keep a company going, and I had this company. I'd spent all of my life, years trying to figure out how to make that thing work. And then I realized I have to let go of that and to fully embrace doTERRA. And I walked away. And
what's interesting
I knew what it meant.
What's interesting about that stuff is after you did that is when I joined your team. And when you called me and said, hey, I do this full time, I was like, whoa, like, shut up. Are you kidding? And when we talked earlier and Rod was talking, like what it was that made me want to follow you is you gave me something to follow. I mean, you showed me that, you making that decision of letting go opened up that space for me to want to start with you. And so we don't realize,
Right.
just like that analogy with the door, we don't realize what's on the other end of that, right? And my fear of the unknown is, well, what if, like when I let go of being a foster mom, because at the time that was the only way I could add children to my home because I didn't have the financial means to do that. Well, if I was diamond or even gold or platinum, you'd have financial means to adopt another baby. But I didn't believe at the time I could do that. So I had to go off of like, okay, I'm letting go of this, and that's really scary because if I don't get a baby, I'm going to be really pissed at you, Seth. Because
Right.
I didn't know how else that was going to happen because there was no other logical way of explaining how that could happen later in life.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then as time goes by, now you look back on, oh, this makes sense. Now I have all these different ways I could add children to my life.
Right, exactly. And the other thing is I would invite everybody on the call to just sit there and go, okay, what is it that's holding me back? What's stopping me right now from hitting the next level? Hitting, my dream of what I'm trying to accomplish in this. And there's going to be something that's there, and you go, you know what, if that was out of my life right now, then, boy, everything would change. And then I'm going to say, okay, give it up. And you're going to go, but I'm scared. I don't know what it's going to be like. And like, I know. This is where faith comes in. And you're going to have to and you're going to have to maybe call a person in your upline and just go, I'm thinking about this. What do you think?
Yeah.
And and go from there.
Well, and I think it's important, too, that you bring this up that, as leaders, we have to be willing to go there and have those conversations with people on our team, right? Like, you have to have the courage to say, hey, let's have a discussion of this, of, what is preventing you from moving forward? Because sometimes we don't want to be the bad one. Well, I don't want them to be mad at me if they let go of this and they don't get it or whatever that situation is, right? But I see too many people not willing to even have that conversation with their leaders, right?
The other thing is the prerequisite of having that conversation is that you have to have their best interest in mind. It has nothing to do with you and your goals and what you want. It is all about them and their goals and what they want. And you're just there to help them identify the things they need to let go and invite them to step forward. If you're doing it from the perspective of, well, I'm trying to reach my goal and so I'm going to get them to quit their job so they can go, that's disastrous. But if you have their best interest in mind, then it's safe.
Right. All right. Thank you, Seth. All right, Christy Fiker, you're next.
Hey there. So the thing that comes to my mind with letting go is really seeking openness. So whether that's, like for myself, just being able to even be a little bit open to the concept of, like, for me, a huge one has been, being a victim of time and really like owning time and choosing that I create my time. And without that openness to be willing to see that huge block, then it's hard to move forward. And it's the same with our leaders and with working with even, the newest builder that is sharing their heart and wants a change. Just when they're open and when we seek openness in them, or even just that smallest opening, that's where we can see what our blocks are, and that's where we can remind them of who they really are, that they're not those things that are seeming to be such a block. When they are fear-based or limiting, they actually only have as much power as we are willing to give them. And once we're able to see it, then that's a huge part of the letting go process right there. It's just being open and acknowledging the block. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Alonso.
So, one of the hardest things for me to let go was a secure engineering job. Right? And this was a decision that we made basically 3 months into building doTERRA. because
oh, wow.
the aspect of that job represented literally an entire lifetime of like attaining that, right? Like one of the reasons why we moved to the States was to kind of search for a better opportunity, get a better education, all these things that I did for 30 plus years, like 33 years of my life led up to me finally securing a job, finally like working for the government where like the security and comfort and safety was there. But there was a point where, is this enough? Is this like what I literally dreamed about and am wanting to do? And when we made that decision to let my job go and really like go home and like make that decision, it opened up an entire new paradigm for us and what we were able to accomplish as a family. And one of the best stories I've ever heard was a war between the army and the French and the British. And in this instance, the British were outnumbered. And one of the things that the generals like ordered was, when the British landed into like the French occupied territory, he ordered the boats to be burned. And when the boats were burned, like the British had no choice but to go forth and take like the camp or take the territory that was occupied by the French, because they had no other choice. So sometimes like the best decision to make is literally to burn that bridge, because our tendencies when it comes to like our nature as human beings is that we revert back to safety. Like we revert back to what's comfortable. And if that's no longer existent, then you're just going to do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Right. Thank you. I love that. And I didn't realize that you had made that decision to let go of your job and everything you worked for so many years so early on in your journey with doTERRA. I mean, at that point, 3 months into it, what rank were you guys?
We just came back from convention, so we were just like elite premier. Yeah.
Incredible. And was it worth it, Alonso?
Hey, like it was amazing because so we went to our first convention and Rod had a table reserved for us, and the bikers were in that same table as us, and we basically like came together and we're like, we're going diamond next year. We're walking that carpet and we're gonna be there. And we didn't get to walk the carpet the second year that we went to convention, but we literally hit diamond in August and came back to convention as diamonds.
That's incredible. Awesome. Thank you. All right, Jacqueline Child, and then we're moving on.
Okay. Like, how do you follow that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is going to sound totally lame after this. This is actually just a question that based on all of this. So, you know, there's been times when we've had really excited leaders come to us and be like, I think I'm going to do this full time. Is there ever a time to tell them not to? Or when is it appropriate to say yes, or, you know, I'm just wondering.
Oh, geez, that's a good question. Seth, Rod, I'm going to throw that one at you guys. That one for me is like really hard because I've been through the financial ruin, right? And I'm like, man, I would never wish that on anyone. So when someone comes to me, you know, if they should quit their job or not, I do panic on that one. I have a really hard time leading them one way or another. So,
a lot of
anyone have input for Jacqueline?
Yeah, for me, it's when they have demonstrated an ability to do the things in doTERRA that they're going to need to do, and you know that what they're giving, that all they're doing is that they're holding themselves back. if someone can't pull off a class before they quit their job, then I doubt they'll be able to pull off a class after they do it. And if they can't commit builders, right? And if they can't, so are you kind of catching my drift here? So
yep.
There's finding each and rolling duplicating activities. If they are capable in those skills, then it's like, oh yeah, then I can help them make a wise decision, taking into consideration their financial situation, their obligations, their debts, things like that, making sure that they're for the most part, I don't tell anybody to do it if they can do it without quitting. It's when you realize, you know what, you're being held back because this is the only thing holding you back. Now, right. I'm going to say that for the most part, most people are not going to do a pull an Alonto and a Desiree, and I wouldn't even suggest
right.
that they do. I didn't. So in other words, I think in answer to Jacqueline's question, is when they've demonstrated the ability to do it, and when you know that this is the thing that's holding them back from taking it to the next level.
Awesome, thank you.
Rod, what do you think?
All right.
Yeah, I have a couple of things to add on that too, and really this goes both ways, and so for some of our team members, I actually recommend that they do get a job just to make sure, or I'll often tell team people to not be afraid of getting a job if they need to. It doesn't mean that you need to quit your doTERRA business just because you need to increase the income in your home or things like that for a time being. And so Seth and I are on the same page there as far as what we look at. And each case is an individual case, and a lot of it depends on their capability and their circumstance. So even with Desiree and Alonto, when they had called asking my opinions on Alonto quitting his job, one of the factors was they had another source of income as well that was actually covering the bills of the home, and so the risk factor of them doing that was not over the top. It was scary in as much as it was putting them in a position where they were declaring doTERRA as their source of income, but they had enough of a cushion. And Desiree and Alonto are also very good at managing their finances as well, and so they weren't in an incredible amount of debt or anything like that where they had huge liabilities chewing them up. And so a lot of things about their circumstance were really great. And Desiree was making some huge strides in their business, and some great leaders were showing up, about that time. And so with them, that was a great move for them. And it has been for several of my leaders as well, especially if one of the spouses still has a job or a good career that's again, making the baseline of the home needs. And because one of the things you don't want to do is create a state of desperation. And
right.
The state of desperation will kill a business. And that's why I tell people when they're coming up against that, what do they already have momentum? Do they already have at least one or two solidly committed leaders so that there's growth happening continuously? And is their trajectory upward, or is it stagnant, or is it declining? Those are, if you have an upward trajectory, usually the best time I found if you're kind of making a target is probably right around the gold rank, where you start to make those decisions. So that's my thought.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
gold
you.
rank and make sure that it never puts you in a position of desperation, because then you have a really hard time mentoring people when you're desperate. People can sense that, so don't put yourself in that situation. Anyway, go ahead.
Thank you. I love it. Hey, I know that we are up on time right now, but I want to go ahead and finish the call anyways for the hundreds of people that are still on the call, because we have one last decision to go over, and so I don't want to end the call right now. So the last decision is the decision to go big, right? So how do you help someone make that decision to go big? Or what were some factors that helped you make that decision?
I'm going to chime in on this one because I want people to understand that the decision to go big is a continuous one. So, for example, both Seth and I, individually and apart from each other, have both recently renewed our vision to go really, really big. And when each of us have made that decision, it literally transformed anything. I mean, I've always kind of played big, and I've always known that I was headed to Presidential Diamond, but there was always that sense that I was looking over my shoulder, or what's my backup plan, or what's this, kind of doubting. When the summer comes, it gets slow for people, and sometimes that causes you to think, okay, well, what's my contingency? And then I had a moment where I realized that the mission we're on is the mission that I'm about, and it's the mission I want my life to be about. And then I felt inspired and felt a prompting that I needed to trust in the company and trust in my team, and that the mission I was on was big. It was as big as I could possibly want to handle, and of course that was a renewed vision. And about that time, Seth was getting his own go big inspirations and promptings and things like that. And things began to dramatically shift as he started to position himself for what 1,000 diamonds look like, or 3 million distributors inside of a team. These are some big things, but I wanted people to realize that renewed thing, that decision to go big, we're still making those decisions, and we're still recommitting ourselves to them, even at this level. And so it's good. And I think
it's not a place that you just arrive at and then you're there.
Right. And it's something I've felt a number of times. Like going diamond was a decision to go big, and I made sacrifices, and I made offerings to get spiritual assistance in that. Going blue diamond was a decision to go big, and going presidential diamond is pulling out the stops and allowing myself to step into my full power. And each one of these things, I made a different decision, a different level of commitment at a different phase.
Thank you. I love that.
I think going big is when people decide to go at least diamond or above. It's when they're like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, because the ranks below that pay the bills, and that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about, if I could be gold, it'll at least pay the bills, and that's what I believe can happen. I don't know that I can believe I can make $50,000 a month, but I think I can believe I can make $5,000 a month. And you just you're living in the realm you believe and understand, and then all of a sudden there's a decision to go. But you're like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm doing this, I'm going all the way. I'm not going part of the way. I'm going all of the way. And you understand that you're not making a small decision. It's not a small thing that you're choosing. I'm deciding to go big, and I understand what kind of commitment, sacrifice that's going to take, and I'm okay with that. In fact, I choose that.
All right. Any other comments on this? One last follow-up question. Why is it important to decide to go big?
Because you're going to change a lot of people's lives, not just your own. The small ranks, you're focused on how it's going to impact you and yours. But when you start thinking about going big, it's typically because you realize the impact you can make on others and the world around you, and that you have the capacity to change it for better, so why not? And when you realize that the only thing you're giving, like when you talk about letting go, you're just letting go of your comfort zones, letting go of your, letting go of what you're comfortable with, and basically mediocrity. And then you let go of that, and you go, you know what, I don't need that, but I want to make a difference in this world. It's kind of the idea that's like, there's billions of people that have been born and died, and no one knew that they were even here, and that's not going to be me.
Right.
Besides that, playing small is boring, and playing big is exciting. So play big.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I think about the times that I've made the decision to go big, it really was a shift in not thinking about me anymore, but it was thinking about the impact, the influence, and the millions of people that needed me. right? And so what you said, Seth, is dead on. That's what I think of every time. I'm like, it's important for you to do this because others need you. They're counting on you, right? And if you don't decide to do it, then who is? Who do they have to look forward to, And I just think when you make that decision, it is completely selfless at that point. And up until that point, you're still too consumed with your own freaking self.
That's correct. You are dead on. It's the realization that you're sitting there playing well below your capacity. And it's also, in my opinion, it's always been a divine invitation. Like Rod was mentioning he used words like prompting and different thoughts and things like that were coming to both of us. Well, what a prompting is when God is trying to speak to you and you're finally listening. And all he's saying is it's an invitation. It's rarely a command. It's more like an invitation, and it's like, you could do a lot of good if you were to play bigger. You could change lives if you were to play bigger. Why don't you feel the measure of your creation and play bigger? It's kind of like, I'm going to love you no matter what, but I need people who are going to be my hands while they're here on the earth, and I just want to invite you to be those hands. Will you do it? And then you just kind of go, you know what? Yes, I do. I will do that because while I'm here, why not? Why not?
Right.
When you ask yourself why not, it's like you have all these lame excuses, these stupid excuses. You're like, why am I allowing that to be the reason that for me to not be the influence I could be? And then you just go, yeah, all that is lame. This is awesome. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Courtney.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So I love the last question, and taking a look at the climate of like what we have now when it comes to leaders and influencers, right? I would rather put my money, my resources in someone that's really going to create change and make a difference than the current leaders that we have right now. So when you decide to go big, you're going to be that person that really people can rely on, that's going to make the best choices when it comes to what you have in your heart. So like with the current leaders, are you willing to follow them? Are you willing to really like put your life on the line for those people that are making those decisions? Or would you rather have someone like yourself being at the top, influencing how this country is moving forward?
Thank you, Alonso. Opens up a whole nother can. I love it. All right. I know we are well past time, but I think it was well worth it to make sure that we at least were able to touch on that last decision because of how important that is. Thank you, everyone, for staying on the call, and thank you for everyone who participated. And I wish each of you a very happy and successful week. Talk to everyone next week.